Hey there folks, so in this video we're going to be looking at getting the actual texture files from externally to Unreal into Unreal so that we can start using them to create paper 2D sprites, paper ZD animations and so on. So there's going to be a couple of places you're going to see me using these from, and they're going to mainly be either free assets that we can find on, you can see here, itch.io game assets /free. There's a whole bunch of free assets, and for the most part there's lots of really great 2D stuff in here. So I would recommend that if you follow through some of the tutorials and you're looking at it, maybe have a look at some of the assets that I am using, but you can apply the actual processes and applications of that to create it using any of the things that you can find in here. So the things that I'm going to use the most often are going to be things that are from Pixel Frog, and if I click on the Pixel Frog here, you're going to see that we have things like Tiny Swords, Pixel Adventure, Treasure Hunters, Kings and Pigs, and you might find that I use a whole range of different examples from here. So it might be that I use things from one pack in one video or from another one, and it's just so that I've got the assets and the things that I need in order for that specific tutorial. I'm not going to be necessarily showing you how to make a very specific game. The whole tutorial series is about the idea of how can I get you comfortable and set up so you can make your own games using these tools, using the Paper 2D, Paper ZD tools. So feel free to go and have a look through these and explore what they've got available to them. In the Tiny Swords one, you will see that there are some free elements and there's also some paid elements. Occasionally I might use some paid things, so like the enemy pack, you might see that I use a couple of the pieces out here. But just know that if you can do it with one of the sprites, you can do it with any of the sprites. You can come through here and you can apply it to any of them. I also use a couple of the ones here from Panussenbic, and that's only because I really like all of their Dark series and their Stranded series. I have most of the sprite packs for those, so I will use these occasionally for different demos. So potentially it might be for a certain type of enemy, a certain type of ability, or just a quick demo of how to do sprites. Exactly the same thing. You'll be going on here and you'll be downloading these. So you can see here, you can buy this one and then you'll be able to download this, and it has a whole bunch of different animations and effects. And what's going to happen is when you download and you get these things, you're going to end up with something like this. You're going to end up with these little texture sheets. And with our 2D elements, what we're going to do is we're going to have a PNG file that either contains one little image, one specific frame of an animation. So maybe idle might literally just be one frame, or a tree, for example, might be completely static and it's just one thing. Or we might find that they're actually arranged out on some kind of grid. So you can see there's a warrior attack here. There's all the different stages of the attack. So as the character pulls his sword back, swings it, and has the follow through of that, and then obviously he's going to return back to his idol. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring these into Unreal as the sprite sheets, and we're going to extract out each of these into their own individual sprites and then make flipbooks out of those. So how do we get this into the engine? Well, really easy options here. We can either import them, or we can go and grab them and just bring them all in by just literally taking them, dragging them and dropping them into our content browser. Now you see here it's just popped up the extra content browser for me, and what I want to just show you here is that if I actually open these up, and if I open them, I'm just going to give you a little tip here. If I open them up, what I might find is that it keeps on opening these things up as a separate window. Now that annoys me a little bit if I'm only working on one screen. So what I do is I go to Edit, Editor Preferences, and when that pops up, I'm just going to change the Asset Editor Open Location to Main Window. And that just means that if I do open up any additional things now, it opens them straight away as a tab in that main window. Now this, it looks great, it looks fine, until we start zooming in a little bit, and you can see that's going to start blurring all the edges. I'm losing all the beauty of this kind of pixel art here where everything's blurring from one pixel to another. And that's because when this texture is brought in, as you can see from the black backgrounds here, it's brought in not knowing what this texture is going to be used for. Is it for a 2D sprite, like what we're going to use it for? Is it because it's going to be used for VFX and particles? Is it going to be because it's going to be put into a material and used on a 3D object? And that's the default, traditionally, what we'd use this for. And even then, what type of texture is it? Is it, a normal map texture? Is it a albedo texture? It doesn't know. So what we need to do here is we actually need to go into here and start changing some of the settings. So there's an easy option, and the easy option is just right click, go to Sprite Actions, and we will look at create and extract sprites and create tile sets in the future. But the one we're looking for here is just apply paper 2D texture settings. And what you can see here is it says sets the compression settings and sampling modes to the default specified in the paper 2D import project settings. So if you've watched the video on setting up the project settings, you will have known that we set up what are our default settings for our sprites, for our textures when we create them. And it says here it's going to use the paper 2D options. So I apply this, and what you'll now see is if I go into here and zoom in, you'll see it's actually keeping all of that beautiful pixel art and nothing's getting blurred out. All the background has gone transparent, and there's also a whole bunch of extra stuff that has changed up here. Now that's great. What you could do is you could select a bunch of them and just Sprite Actions apply paper 2D texture settings. This again is one of those simple little bugs and simple little issues that I spot a lot with students where they're like, why does everything look blurry? It's just a case of have you applied the paper 2D texture settings to that. Now you might be looking at that and going, that's cool, but actually what is it changing? What's going different? So I'll just show you what is actually changing and different there. For the most part, what you'll tend to do is just bring these in, apply the texture 2D settings, and be done with it. But let's understand a little bit more about what's actually going on in here. Now, the first thing is that it changes the MIPGen settings to no mip maps. And that's basically saying that if this texture is really far away, if it gets really scaled down, let's not reduce down the amount of detail. So let's not take it from, a 256 down to a 128, down to a 64, 32, and so on. It's just saying that no matter what distance away, the number of MIPS is 1. So it never ever changes from this size, this amount of detail. The next option is one that the project settings was setting up, which is this 2D pixels unfiltered. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different options that are available in here. And this is just basically saying that if we are working with this for a 2D game, let's set each of these things to be 2D pixels. The next option is compression settings. And this one says user interface 2D. Now there are no other options in here for things like pixel art, but that's fine because our user interface 2D is the exact same purpose here. We're saying that if something is going to be appearing maybe on our UI, we don't want it to compress down and to end up reducing in size and detail and losing some of the kind of graphical fidelity of that. So we use that exactly the same as we would if we were approaching making our UI. We want to say, nope, don't want to lose any detail, so use the user interface options. Now there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on here, and none of these things here are actually the things specifically making it go into the kind of pixel style that we've got here, except kind of is. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go down to this texture option here, and if we look in advanced, and what you'll see is if you go into advanced, there's a section here called filter, the texture filtering mode to use when sampling this texture. Now, if you are a pixel artist and you're working in Photoshop and creating your own pixel art, one of the things that you might be setting up in the projects for that is setting that up to use nearest neighbor. Yeah, and that's actually an option that's available here in this filter. So you can see nearest, bilinear, trilinear. Now by default, this is set to use the texture group. Now if I was to change this to nearest, I'm not going to see any difference here. It's set to use default, and that's fine because what this is doing is saying, look at the texture group, well that is the 2D pixels unfiltered, and that 2D pixels unfiltered defines the filter as nearest. Yeah, so again, if you're looking at it and using a different texture group, or you've got some other reason for using those texture groups, if you want to keep that pixel art kind of example, just change this to nearest, and that will give you your options there. Okay, so that's how we bring this in. And one of the things that I would recommend is obviously going through, giving these a little bit of a naming convention. So for example, I might want to go T_warrior_, and I can't remember what this one was actually called. It was an attack. Yeah, of course it was. So I would put that into the name, and that would be enough for me here. So I might just put in attack, and I'm going to short my attack there. Get some naming conventions on there and bring in each of your textures. Make sure that each of them has the 2D pixels and the paper 2D settings set on them. And then once that's done, we can start making some sprites out of them. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.